what are some of the costs that people need to be wary of if they are being an investor before they get too carried away with how Greg said how good the rental market's going to be?
James, when we buy an investment property, a lot of people don't realize there's the upfront costs and the ongoing costs. Okay, so a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to buy a property, 500,000, pay the money, stamp duty, and got to make the loan repayments. But there are some other costs that it's good to be aware of and do all the calculations. So when you do buy the property, you make an educated decision and you know exactly where you're heading.
Okay, so I've got all these costs. Does that mean I just have to eat less? Or, going forward, how does that pay off for me?
Look, not at all. And like we're talking about, the costs, and if you want, we can go into more detail, but, it's not just the cost that you got to pay. You got to think of the income that's created on a weekly basis from that property, as well as the capital growth that is created from that property as well. So it's not just a negative thing.
Okay. So Greg, I don't know if you can remember the stats, but we were running through Rentvesting and basically showing to people that, here in South Bank, the cost of an 80% LVR mortgage was less than the rental that you're getting in. So effectively, whilst there's these other costs that you might be taking on in addition to your own home mortgage, you're still making a positive net cash flow.
As we looked at those numbers we did through last time, is that in places like this where you're getting good value in terms of your rental yield is usually higher relative to the property, you actually can be positively geared. So it's still a good, even though you've got these sort of costs, which as an investor are tax deductible, or at the end of the day, when you do sell it, there's an offset. Yep. So it does sound all like gloom and doom, but ultimately it's things that are good. Yeah.
And so, people that are perhaps scared or worried or concerned about interest rates going up, is that going to change the equation, or are we going to be seeing the rental growth is going to help keep that at bay?
I think the rental growth, as we said, because of the demand carrying on, that rental growth should help push, as your mortgage might go up. And just bearing in mind, which we've told you before,
no one listens to us, Greg.
I know. And our finance guys have told us when they've been lending money, they've already factored in, can this person afford to pay the additional in the event of additional? So people that have got loans at the moment, in theory, can already afford an increase. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we're going to see increased rentals should keep the cash flow situation in a good light.
Okay. Now, perhaps to all of you guys, maybe we'll go around and start with you, Lucas. What are some pitfalls or disadvantages of being an investor? So let's start with the negative and how you might overcome those with some of the positives.
Look, first of all, the number one disadvantage, and if you call it a disadvantage, is having to fund a deposit. Okay, so you want to buy a property, you need to have
the money.
That's right. So and it's a disadvantage because with the prices going up, sometimes people that were looking to buy a house that's now $2.5 million, not everybody's got a lazy $500,000 sitting around. So the deposit. Well, I'm the exception to this. Then you got to think about when you buy a property, and of course, this doesn't apply to all the property, but you've got like maintenance costs. Okay, so there's always things to fix around an older home.
Yep.
Now, another important one is the possible liability depending on the area that you buy. So, instead of buying in a good area, because we know it keeps on coming back to location, which we always talk about.
Greg, what's golden rule number one?
Location, and James is always right.
Good. Okay. That man's getting a pay rise.
If you buy in an area with no infrastructure, in an area with the hope that one day might become popular, you could get into trouble. And always, before you purchase, do your research, do your due diligence, because there are some properties out there that are very well overpriced. So you know, you got to be careful about that. And the other one, which you sort of touched on, which the interest rates, if they increase. But yeah, really, that's about it. I don't see any other disadvantages.
Okay, Greg, and anything people should watch out for?
Well, I think we've always talked about is time in the market, not timing the market. So with all property, you've got to look at when you get into the market, you're looking at this as a long-term investment. It's not a quick in, quick out. There might be certain circumstances where you might make a quick profit, but going into this, you're going to it with the purpose of doing it over a long term to grow wealth. So time in the market, very, very crucial.
Yeah. And I think that's, I think I touched on it a couple of weeks ago. It's about, anything you do, you've got to do with intention and an understanding and a plan. And that intention should be to buy and hold forever. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't sell, but you've got to have that strategy that you're buying a good asset, something that you can really leverage and get a good amount of appreciation as well as cash flow out over time and time again. And in a perfect world, hand down over generations. But if you need to sell it, you can, but you need to have that intention that you're in it for the long haul.
As you're saying, in the long haul, you're not going in there to make a quick buck. When you go into this, you're going in it for the long haul and to get the
people that want a quick buck should stick to Bitcoin because
right.
it's quicker to lose your money. All right, Jack, any sort of pitfalls, advantages, disadvantages of being an investor or things that perhaps people don't think about?
I think the smart investor, like Greg said, we're going to have a look at the long-term, the return. Like I think maybe the last year, even the year before, we had a really, really tough time. And some of the people thinking, okay, it's invested, it's not well, and my property is not doing well, and I lose money. But of course, like we say, like we're talking about today, the vacancy rate, the rental, because the vacancy rate is keep dropping and the rental is getting more popular. Eventually, the rental price will going up. What is going to happen after the rental price going up is more and more investor has the interest in to buy the investment property because they had this sort of thinking, okay, the rental is going up, I can get a more income, more money on the investor property. Yep. And also definitely will push the property prices going up. So this is like a very, very good circle. Maybe today or maybe last year, a few of the investors is struggling, they lose a bit of money. But having looked in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, even 10 years, you're gonna have the lots of the benefits on your property investment.
So I'm going to put it out there to all of you. 2021 was the year of the suburban freestanding home, owner occupiers. You couldn't get enough stock. All you had to do was list your home and you got a record price. 2022, 2023, 2024, is that going to be the period of investors, the inner city sort of medium to high density market? Is that what we're expecting?
I really expect that, James. As I mentioned to you before, we've spoken about it on a number of occasions. Yes, these houses have gone berserk. 2021, freestanding house, but the gap between that and apartments has to normalize. So there's still fantastic value out there as an investor. Get in while those prices are still at their historic lows.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be growth in it. Absolutely.
Lucas?
James, as you showed before with Jack, things are on the way up. I don't think we're going to see a slowdown. What people have to also remember is more and more people now are coming and want to live in the CBD and close to the city. The construction sector has basically been on hold for the last couple of years. People have to start understanding that there hasn't been much construction happening. The demand will continue to grow as we've seen, as Jack and James showed us before. And we're not building as much. People still want to come and live here. Where they're going to be living, right? You got to get in it now while you can, because land is running out. Location is not going to be the best location anymore because you got to go further and further out. So people got to look at the bigger picture and really understand what all those figures we talk about mean.
Yeah. Okay. And I think one of the things that we've almost forgotten about over the last few years is how important events are. So, not only for us to have fun, but we just had the Formula One. Greg complains every day because Albert Park Lake is still shut. He says he has to come late, leave early. I think it's just a ploy. But, that was, I was sort of hearing rumours that was the best Formula One that they've had ever in terms of numbers, the engagement and the excitement. So that's great for entertainment. But with that comes all of the jobs, the people that need to live in the inner city area, everyone that mans those bars, puts the events together, is at those locations. We had the Australian Open at the start of the year. The footy's just started. We're getting record crowds. The traditional Anzac Day game is about to happen again this weekend. So, all of these events and these big events that keep happening, they need a ton of people to put them together and actually work on those days.
Nice.
And that means people are going to come and live in the city. They start earning incomes again. They start spending money, which means more jobs happen, more people are needed. And it just keeps, it's like a snowball effect.
Yep.
And I think people really underestimate that, yes, the migration's big. Yes, the students are big. Yes, the people that have been living regional that didn't come here to study are big. But it's just the general getting back to life. I opened with it saying, we're getting 30,000 cases a day. Had this have been 2020 and we got 3, that was it. Lockdowns, we're not allowed to talk about it. 2021, the same thing. And this is really showing that we've just moved forward. We're getting on with life. And that's really why I think if there ever was a time for you to, sort of do something and make a change and get in and think about being an investor, now is a pretty good time to do it.
Absolutely.